in my practice, I I gave up all my assumptions, right? I didn't assume anything anymore after a while. And so I would just ask the subconscious mind what it needed. And the reason I wrote the Emotion Code book first was because that was the first thing that would always show up. It was more common than anything else, emotional baggage. I used to work a lot with dancers and with athletes, and they would, come in after some kind of an injury, and there would be trapped emotions. And oftentimes, even if it was an injury that was kind of acute, and you'd think, oh, well, the pain is perfectly justified to be there because they just got slammed.
Hmm.
Even in those cases, releasing emotional energy, uh, would often result in a reduction of pain, sometimes a disappearance of the pain. In fact, I've seen toothaches completely disappear instantly.
Mm. Hello and welcome to the Soul Awakening Podcast. I'm your host, Kat Fowler, and today we are going to be talking all about the role of emotions and how they affect us and our health, and our well-being overall. And we actually have a world-renowned expert who wrote the book on this and developed his own healing methodology on how to heal them. And I actually found Dr. Bradley Nelson's work in probably 2017, and I actually loved it. And because I study energy healing and, I even wrote my own book on energy healing, I love studying all different modalities. And in particular, I really found his type of work extremely efficient, very quick, and I really enjoyed doing sessions. So it is a pleasure to talk to him today, being that I've known of his work for so long. And so I'm going to read his bio. So, Dr. Brad is widely recognized as one of the world's leading experts in energy healing and emotional wellness. He's the developer of the Emotion Code, the Body Code, and Belief Code systems, each offering breakthrough tools that help people release emotional baggage, restore balance, and improve their lives at every level. His first book, The Emotion Code, became a global phenomenon and has been translated into over 25 languages. Since its original release, it has helped millions of people around the world experience relief from physical pain, emotional distress, and limiting patterns, many for the first time in their lives. His follow up, The Body Code, published in 2023, took the work even further, earning endorsements from wellness leaders around the world and appearing on bestseller lists across the health and spirituality categories. Now, with the Heart Code, Dr. Brad is bringing forward what many consider the most important discovery in energy healing today: the heart wall. This subtle energetic barrier affects everything from our health and relationships to our ability to experience success, love, and purpose. Based on decades of clinical experience and thousands of case studies, the Heart Code is being described as the book that can help heal the world, starting with the heart. And so Discover Healing was founded by Dr. Brad and his wife, Jean, and has grown into an international training and certification platform for energy practitioners. The company supports a global network of thousands of certified emotion code and body code practitioners across 108 countries, with more than 15,000 certified practitioners and students that are currently active. Each of these healing methods can be performed at a distance, which has opened up new careers and life-changing tools for people of all walks of life, including doctors, therapists, veterans, parents, and healers. And the Emotion Code and the Body Code have been featured in dozens of documentaries and podcasts. And Dr. Brad has appeared on Coast to Coast AM, Gaia TV, and Hay House Radio. And his work has been endorsed by Tony Robbins, Dr. Sue Morter, Greg Braden, Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, Anita Morjani, and many, many more. So, like I said, I discovered his work many years ago and it was profoundly impactful. I loved his method, and I'm so excited to talk all about not only what he does with the work with emotions, but how it's done and how we can learn to heal ourselves on our own or working with a practitioner. So, I hope that you enjoy the interview, and I will see you at the end of the show. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Brad, for coming on to the show. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you, Kat. I'm really excited to talk with you too. It's great to connect with you and meet you. And thanks for inviting me on your show.
Yeah. So, as you know, I have one of the older copies of your book. I
Yeah.
found you many years ago, I think, through an interview. I think it was Gaia. And I actually have done a few of your sessions through your practitioners
Mhm.
way back when. And I thought it was fascinating how quickly it worked. So I did want to ask you just in general, I read your bio ahead of time. You came from chiropractic work. That was like almost 40 years ago. How did you shift from that and discover this healing and move into the emotion code?
Well, that's a great question. When I was 13 years old, I was diagnosed with kidney disease, and it was really serious. But there was no medical treatment available for me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do kidney transplants back then, and my kidneys were fighting for their survival, and so it was kind of touch and go, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of physical pain involved, and so on. But since there was nothing that Western medicine had to offer, my folks took me to see some holistic doctors, and they were. I thought they were chiropractors for years. They were actually osteopathic doctors,
Okay.
and um, and it was really interesting. I decided because they helped me to get well within just a matter of, I think, about 3 weeks. I was completely well. My folks
Wow.
took me back to the hospital. They ran all the tests. All the tests were negative. It was amazing. But I knew that these holistic doctors had really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel it in my body. I mean, right away when they started working on me, I could feel it, that it was exactly what my body needed. It was wild. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. Well, this is age 13. So I can remember at that age, right? Pretty young. I can remember lying on my back on their treatment table, looking up at them and saying, when I grow up, I want to do what you're doing. And they were very discouraging, Kat. They would say, no, you don't. No. Said you go to chiropractic school or osteopathic school or naturopathic school. They said by the time you get out, you'll be like a zombie.
Oh my
Your head
gosh.
will be so full of fixed ideas, you won't even be able to think for yourself. And
Mm,
so, these people had saved my life. I believed everything they said. So I filed that away. And then in 1980, I was going to school at BYU, Hawaii,
mm.
and in on Oahu, and I needed one more class for my schedule, and the only class that fit was a class on computer programming, and I had no interest in computers. I didn't know anything about computers, and I thought, well, all right, I'll take the class. And suddenly I was just head over heels in love with computers. And so
Wow.
this is in 1980. And so I taught myself programming and I
Hmm.
became a computer programmer. And this is back in the early days, when the Mac first came out,
The
the
colorful ones, the
IBM,
big ones.
yeah, and the IBM PC and so on.
Mhm.
And it's, of course, now we have AI and it's just been crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, uh, yeah. So that dream of going into the healing arts kind of faded away,
Hmm.
and and then I remember one day. Well, what happened was I actually got a really powerful answer to prayer about what direction my life should go, and it was back to the healing arts. And so I went to chiropractic school, and I remember one day I was sitting in my neurology class, and our instructor, a guy named Dale Nansell, was talking about the brain, and he was kind of riffing, on the brain and how the brain is this computer, and I'm sitting there and I'm putting myself partly through school by doing programming for the school,
Oh, wow.
and so I'm still really into programming, and I remember so clearly sitting there and thinking, wow, the brain is a computer. I wonder if we'll ever have the technology to be able to hack into that computer brain and get information, because that would be unbelievable, right? I mean, if we could ask the brain itself what's really wrong with people,
Mm.
that would be such a game changer, right?
Hmm.
And then I remember so clearly thinking, well, probably not in my lifetime, maybe in 200 or 300 years, we'll have that technology, right? Little
Wow.
did I know that's exactly what I was going to spend the rest of my life working on.
Hmm.
And that's what the emotion code and the body code and the belief code and the heart code, that's what all of this is about, really. When I got into practice, um, it it gradually began to dawn on me that with each patient, I was really working with a computer, but it was a computer unlike any computer that I had ever worked with or that anybody else had ever really worked with either. I believe that within us, we, of course, have this subconscious mind, right? We know that that's there running all the automatic systems and functions in the body, right? Creating millions of new cells every minute,
Mm-hmm.
trillions of chemical reactions every minute. It's running all of those things without our conscious guidance, and it's a good thing. I mean, I've come to the conclusion that the conscious mind that we each have um, is kind of like a lentil on the deck of an aircraft carrier. The aircraft carrier itself being the subconscious mind. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's amazing. Our conscious minds are just kind of along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but what I found was I could I could communicate with the subconscious mind, and I didn't come up with that. There were other people, that had pioneered that work, but I've been able to build on it and kind of put it all together. And so in practice during the last 10 years, I practiced for about 18 years. During the last 10 years of my practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was really no hope for them at all in Western medicine. And people with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and autoimmune problems and people with cancer occasionally and so on. And I always told these people, look, I don't treat diseases at all. All I do is communicate with your internal computer to try to figure out what's in the way of you getting well, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the body wants to heal. I mean, if you cut your hand, it's going to heal if you let it, right? The body
Mm-hmm.
knows how to heal from all kinds of things, from anything pretty much. But sometimes things get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went on, what I found was the biggest thing that was in everybody's way, all my patients, no matter if they were boys or girls, men or women, elderly people, no matter what they were suffering from, mental, physical, emotional issues, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they all had something in common. And the biggest common denominator for all of them was what I came to call emotional baggage. It's emotional energy that becomes trapped in the body during some emotional experience. And so I came to understand that when we experience emotions, um, normally, well, we always experience an emotion in response to some kind of a stimulus that's occurred, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone says something to you, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's mean, or maybe something you find annoying, or you're disgusted, or something happens. Some kind of a stimulus occurs,
Mm-hmm.
and then an emotional feeling comes up in response. Well, what are emotions really? Well, you can define things in terms of biochemistry, and we know there's a biochemical cascade that goes on with emotions and so on. But if you look at everything in terms of energy, in terms of the quantum field, if you're feeling an intense emotion of anger, for example, your body is vibrating at a different frequency than if you were feeling a really powerful emotion of grief, right? So every emotion has its own frequency. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was absolutely right because really, when you get down to it, everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. And so sometimes what happens is an emotion is coming up for us. We don't want to go there. So we stuff that emotion, we bury it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We stop ourselves from feeling it. We distract ourselves, we move on. Well, in that case, that emotional energy that was trying to express is still there. Sometimes an emotion comes up for us and we decide, yeah, that's the ticket. And we get really upset. We enhance the emotion. We artificially like blow it up. And those are situations where usually, right? Usually later, we're kind of embarrassed and we're thinking, oh man, I really flew off the handle there. That was so unnecessary, right? We've all
Mm-hmm.
done that too. In that case, that emotional energy will also become stuck in the body, kind of suspended in the body. And then again, sometimes things happen to us that are just overwhelming. Um, your husband asks you for a divorce out of the blue, or suddenly one of your kids is injured, or somebody is sick or dies, or I mean, tragic things happen. And so sometimes that emotional energy is just too much to process.
Mm-hmm.
Because, see, I call this the emotional loop, right? Normally, what happens is when you begin to feel an emotion, you start into this emotional loop. And normally, we just allow ourselves to feel the emotion and then we kind of acknowledge it and just allow it to dissipate its energy, closing the loop on that experience. That emotional experience is over now, and we're ready for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you bury the emotion or artificially enhance it, or if it's really overwhelming, that results in an open loop, okay, where
Mm-hmm.
the emotional experience is not over. And so I found a lot of crazy things with patients. I mean, it was really sometimes just unbelievable what would happen. Where one of the very first experiences that I had was with a woman that came in to see me. She thought she was having a heart attack. She was a patient of mine, but I hadn't seen her for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
She comes into the office. She's got crushing chest pain, difficulty breathing. Her left arm is totally numb. The left side of her face is totally numb and looks like a heart attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I told my staff, look, we might need an ambulance, but give me 1 minute with her. We were right next to a medical center, so I knew we could get her in there if we needed to. And I started doing some testing on her. And I found that she had a trapped emotion. The emotion was grief. And I needed to know more. So dug a little deeper, asking questions, using muscle testing, right? Asking questions of her subconscious mind, and found out this had occurred 3 years before. And she burst into tears and she says, I can't believe that's affecting me. I thought I dealt with all that. And I said, well, what happened? She said 3 years before her husband was having an affair and she found out about it and confronted him with the evidence. And the
Mm-hmm.
whole marriage blew up. And she ended up getting a divorce from him and then spent a year in therapy trying to deal with it and then got remarried. And so, as far as she was concerned, that guy was just her ex. But as far as her body was concerned, it was like it had just happened, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
I released that emotion, and this whole process took about a minute, right? About one whole minute, maybe two. When I released that trapped emotion by just swiping a few times down her governing meridian right down the middle of her back, the feeling came back into her arm and into her face within about 3 seconds, and the chest pain was gone. Difficulty breathing was gone. And about 10 minutes later, she left the office after joking with me and my staff and chatting with us, And I remember after she left, sitting at my desk with my head kind of spinning, thinking, wow, what was that? But you see, that woman, we're still connected. And she's still a friend. She has a horse ranch in Oregon. And after that was like 35 years ago, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we had not released that super powerful energy that was actually, you know, simulating or creating the symptoms of a heart attack, I think she probably would have died of a heart attack. And I think people wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
realized, what killed her was her husband's affair. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a really interesting example for me. But I've seen so many. 90% of all the physical pain people have is due to emotional baggage, emotional energies. I mean, if you're in pain right now, there's emotional energy that's contributing to that and probably causing it. It's the craziest thing. And that's one of the big reasons why I left practice. But what I also found in practice was that emotional baggage is the common denominator for every disease process we suffer from. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
There's always emotional baggage. I don't care what the disease is, there's an emotional component to it.
Mm-hmm.
And also things like, um, depression and anxiety and phobias and panic attacks and PTSD and eating disorders and self sabotage of all kinds. It's amazing. When you start getting rid of the emotional baggage, you start turning back into the person that you were, I think, kind of intended to be in the beginning, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, so yeah, it's been really fun. And of course, my wife and I travel all over the world and teach, and we have online certifications for people, and we've certified 15,000 plus people now in 108 countries around the world, and it's just been this amazing ride. But people need to know this because
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you're in pain, it might be severe and you might end up going to the hospital. You might get addicted to, you
Mm-hmm.
know, Vicodin or something worse when really the pain is from, maybe your divorce or maybe from when you were being bullied as a kid. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy, but I'm telling you, here we are in the 21st century, and we're finally actually realizing, how
Hmm.
our bodies really work, and it's not what we thought.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So there's so much there that I want to touch on. So just backtracking to the subconscious mind. I love that you said that. I don't know if you're familiar with Dolores Cannon's work at all. She passed, but she used to do a lot of channeling work and she was like a hypnotherapist. And when she would put people under, people would, when they were talking from their subconscious mind, sometimes she would call it the superconscious,
Mhm.
they could recall every detail around them. Let's say they just drove by a store, they could tell you the number on the
Oh yeah.
stores. Like your subconscious records everything. And I don't think people get that unless they hear of this case. So I totally agree. Um, so I'm curious because I know you were mentioning the governing meridian, and with Chinese medicine, there's the central and then there's the governing, and the
Mhm.
governing runs up. And I know you use the to heal, you run the magnet down. How did you start working with that? Did you study Chinese medicine or?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, back when I was in practice, I was studying everything that I could because I was
Hmm.
just really, I was just really obsessed
Yeah.
with getting to the underlying causes of my patient's problems, right? I wanted to know what is really going on with this person. I didn't want to band-aid people, and just give them some kind of temporary fix. I wanted to know what's really going on. And so I was studying everything
Hmm.
and trying to get to the roots of things. And so yes, that's a question that often comes up. Well, the energy in the governing meridian you know, flows from the tailbone up.
Hmm.
And when we're using, for example, a magnet like this or a hand on the governing meridian, we're going the opposite the flow. Why do we do that? Well, the reason why is because before I knew that there was a flow either way, I was just asking the subconscious minds of my patients, which way do we go? And the subconscious minds of all the patients said, oh, just go this way. And I really think it's more a matter of intention, really, than anything else. I mean, you could go the opposite direction, and if your intention is to
Hmm.
release the emotion, it would
Hmm.
work, you know. And you could use the conception vessel meridian too if
Hmm.
you wanted to. That would also work. I mean, what's so wild is that we are beings that are divine and we're capable of so much more than we have any idea about. But I've often said, and this will probably sound crazy to some people, but I mean, you could be in an accident and you could be a total quadriplegic and you could have a very successful practice still doing
Mm.
this because you can actually do it in your mind and it works
Wow.
on other people.
That's fascinating. It reminds me, I studied a lot of energy healing, and when we clear a chakra, some of the techniques are you reverse the flow of the chakra. So everything that's kind of stuck in there comes out, and then you bring it back clockwise the way it's supposed to be, depending on what part of the world you're in. But so that makes a lot of sense with the governing meridian. And I also wanted to ask you with the chart in the book, how you have basically the different organs, and then you have all the different correlating emotions
Right.
to each organ. So I know, like in Chinese medicine, grief is the lungs, joy is the heart, kidney is fear. So how did you develop this chart and you figured out that these certain emotions go with this organ?
Yeah, well, the way that I did it, and of course it goes back to, like you say, back to Chinese medicine, right?
Hmm.
And five element theory and so on.
Hmm.
And the way I did it is I did it through prayer and muscle testing. I take one
Hmm.
emotion at a time, and I had the list of other emotions from the five elements, and then I would just say, okay, where does this need to go? And yeah,
Wow,
and that's how it ended up. And we only had to do it once, and it was a long time ago, and it still works.
that's wild. So, what I'm curious about is the quickness of your work because, like, in an energy healing session, a Reiki session, it might take somebody 30 minutes to clear a really heavy block that's been like lodged for a long time. And like with your story with the woman that you just told, how
Yeah.
it took you like 1 or 2 minutes, basically identified it, went in, cleared it. So, what exactly is happening with that clearing? Like, is it their spirit, their soul that's doing the clearing while you're moving your hand? Like, what is happening that it's moving so fast that the emotion can just release?
Yeah. Well, basically, if you think about it this way, okay, um, think about a trapped emotion. What is it really? Well, it was an emotional loop that didn't complete, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's an open loop. So all we're doing when we find a trapped emotion and release it is we're closing the loop. And then that allows the energy to release. The subconscious mind will hold on to those energies um, because they weren't allowed to complete in some way. And for some reason, it's just how our bodies work, right? I don't claim to know exactly
Hmm.
why it works this way. But so sometimes, if you find a trapped emotion, like let's say I'm working on you and I find a trapped emotion of maybe it's, I don't know, panic, right?
Okay.
Column B, row four. All right. And so, all right, panic comes up. So in the emotion code, uh, well, what the subconscious mind is telling us is that, yeah, an emotional energy of panic. There's an open loop, and the emotion that was coming up there was panic at some point. Now, to close the loop, we always ask this question. Once we find the emotion, the next question in the emotion code is always, do we need to know more about this emotion? In other words, what we're doing is we're giving the subconscious mind a chance, um, to dig, for us to dig a little deeper. Because
Hmm.
sometimes to close a loop on an emotional experience, the subconscious mind will need more info. Because the
Hmm.
subconscious mind might want you to know, hey, this was from that really bad date that you had when you were 19 or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And so if we ask, do we need to know more? If the subconscious mind says yes, well, then we go to the age first. Usually that's it. Usually the subconscious mind will be satisfied if you figure out what the age was. Okay.
Hmm.
Like in this case, this example, okay, age 19, we find that out.
Hmm.
And then we come back and ask, do we need to know more? And so we never release a trapped emotion until the answer to that question, do we need to know more, is answered by a no from the subconscious. As soon as we've satisfied the subconscious mind and we get a no answer to that question, we go ahead, we release the emotion, the loop is closed, the emotional experience is over, and the energy is gone. And so that's one of the beautiful things about the emotion code is that it is so fast. Well, it developed in this practice of mine where I was seeing patients on, like 20-minute time intervals.
Hmm.
And I mean, imagine having a room full of people that have all been told what they have is incurable. You got 20 minutes with each one. You can't, you got to cut to the chase pretty quick, right?
Hmm.
And plus, I'm kind of lazy, I think. I didn't really want to have to do any more work than I absolutely needed to. And so yeah, the beauty of it is uh it really is you're doing the minimum amount of work necessary to identify the emotional energy that's trapped and then figure out whatever information you might need to know about it to satisfy the subconscious, and then you swipe a few times and boom, it's gone. Kind of like if you take a credit card out of your wallet, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
like for example, here's a little credit card of mine. If I rub a magnet on the magnetic strip here, the data that's encoded there is gone. Cards
Hmm.
have chips now, so
Right,
you
right,
still
right,
use
right.
that part. But that
Hmm.
information that was encoded in that magnetic strip is not ever coming back, and that's kind of how it works.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I know with your work that sometimes ancestral healing comes up with people like,
Yes.
from generations back. But I was
Mhm.
wondering when you were saying when you need to know the age of something, have you ever seen past life stuff coming through, like from that person's own past life, meaning beyond this birth?
Oh, I think so. I mean, this is a really interesting question. Basically, in the emotion code, what we talk about is something called preconception trapped emotions.
Hmm.
And a preconception trapped emotion is a trapped emotion that you already had when you were conceived into this, particular
Hmm.
iteration. And so sometimes those are from, yeah, other experiences. I don't claim to know, everything
Hmm.
about it. Some people believe in past lives, some don't. I think I do think for sure here's an interesting thing. What I believe that some of those trapped emotions we find are from experiences where a person was acting as like an angel, a guardian angel sort of thing for someone that was going through mortality, maybe 300 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago. And then that person, something bad maybe happened. And as a spirit, they develop emotional energy. And then hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years later or something, they're incarnated into a physical body and they bring this energy with them. Yeah, we see that all the time. We see trapped emotions that occur before we're conceived, and sometimes I think those, I know for an absolute certainty myself that before we come here, we are with God. We're in a very high vibrational place. I had an experience one time where, I believe that when we come into this world, we come from God, and our memories of where we were are blocked off to us.
Mm-hmm.
Although little
Yep.
kids, toddlers, will they retain some of those memories for a little while until they get to be too old.
Mm-hmm.
But I had an experience one day. I was 18 years old. I was just sitting meditating one day, and all of a sudden it was like some part of me, maybe my heart, was suddenly there was some window that opened to that memory of where I was before I came here in some way,
Mm.
and it instantly filled me with the most crushing, incomprehensibly powerful feeling of homesickness. I can't even
Mm-hmm.
describe it. It was just completely off the chart, and it lasted for about 3 seconds, and then the window closed.
Mm-hmm.
And but I've never forgotten that. It was so powerful. And I realized from that I know that there are divine reasons why we're here. And there are divine reasons why we can't remember where we were before, right? And I know that from that experience, I know that if we didn't have that block on our memory, that veil of forgetfulness that passes over us, if we didn't have that, we would not be able to stand it in this world for 5 minutes. We have to have that, or we could not tolerate it here, because that's how far we've fallen, how far we've come.
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, as far as the past lives, I don't know. I mean, I know that I think we've all been around for an awful long time, like
Mm-hmm.
eternity. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we all came from the same source.
yeah.
But so I do Akashic Records readings. So a lot of my work is sometimes retroactively healing someone
Mhm.
from something that happened in a past life. And as they're doing a
Yeah.
session, they're seeing it vividly. I'm seeing it. They're crying. They're releasing that emotion. They're letting it express from whatever trauma happened or death. Usually it's like a very traumatic death of some sort for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then they're healed in this life of whatever issue that they carried into. And a lot of times these are like phobias, like I don't know why I'm scared of heights. I don't know why I'm
Yeah.
afraid of this or that. So I
Or
love that.
physical pain too sometimes, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
or like, yeah, injuries that they come in with. But I love that you were talking basically like a lot of people call that in between lives or like pre-birth. Like there's a lot of books on pre-birth planning. Like before you come in, there's a few mediums, channelers that have deliberately tried to go to that space that you were talking about that you kind of reached for a little bit to see before we come in and down how we plan our life and how it's going to be and how we're with the assistance of guides and this and that. And I
Hmm.
never actually, until you said it, thought that there could be trauma on the other side of our soul when we're functioning as a spirit guide for others. It reminds me so much of that Christmas movie,
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Clarence who comes down and he's like
Right.
having a hard time and
Right.
wow.
Zuzu's Petals.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a great show.
Yeah. So that's amazing. I didn't know that that would come up. And then also I was thinking when you were talking about that, do you ever find things coming up from the womb? Because I feel like
Oh yeah.
so much, yeah, so much can happen, especially if like the parents are in a difficult relationship or something happens physically to the mother.
It's very common, really. Yeah,
Hmm.
see it all the time. I would say probably I don't know, probably about every fifth person that I would
Wow.
work everyone would have something from the womb. Yeah. So, and typically it's mom is experiencing something, betrayal or abandonment or grief or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, her whole being is vibrating on a quantum level with that new vibration. And the baby is along for the ride
Mm-hmm.
and is feeling it too, that vibration. And so then it becomes trapped in the baby. And
Mm-hmm.
then, oh yeah, I've seen people who had physical problems, for example,
Mm-hmm.
who, the final thing that actually fixed it would be something from the womb. Inherited emotional energies are incredibly powerful too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what happens with those is at the moment of conception, we receive emotional energy, from mom or dad, and they might have received it when they were conceived, and these can go back for many generations. And yeah, we've seen some really. In fact, let me share a story with you. That's really
Sure.
really fun about this one. Um, I was doing an event one time. There were about 300 people in the audience, and I asked for somebody that was really in pain. In fact, I said, if you think that nobody else could possibly be in more pain than you, I want you to stand up. So this lady stands up and she hobbles up to the stage, limps up there. She's got this pain in her hip that's a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. She's had it for, I don't know, like a year. And she's seen doctors for it, and nobody knows what's going on. So anyway, I tested her and found an imbalance and fixed it. And it took her down from a 9 to a 4. Then the next thing I found was this inherited trapped emotion. And she got it from her father. The emotion was fear. And he got it from his dad, who got it from his dad, who got it from his dad. It goes back, I think, 12 generations,
Mm-hmm.
her father's side. So I muscle tested her. And when I'm in front of a group of people, I always do this. I've done this for many years, where her subconscious mind knows exactly what's going on. And so in this case, I asked her, okay, I asked her subconscious, um, okay, are these ancestors here with us? And the answer was yes, right? Strong. All right. Are they like floating in the air over the audience? No. Are they sitting out there on people's laps? No. Are they up here on the stage with us? Yes. And that's always where they are, right? Because they show up because they're about to have this energy released from them, but also because this person is their descendant. And so they have a certain amount of love for that person. And so I released it and the pain was zero. And so she's dancing around on the stage and she goes back and sits down and I finished the lecture and I went back out to this hall where we had all of our staff and everything. And about a minute after I get there, this woman walks up to me and she says, Dr. Nelson, I was in your class. She said, I just wanted you to know something. She said, I'm one of those people that has that ability to see spirits. Some people have that. And she says, I've had it all my life. It's kind of been a blessing, kind of been a curse, and it's kind of a double-edged thing. But she said, I wanted you to know that when you were describing those grandfathers of hers, they were all there and I could see them. I just wanted you to know that, just to verify what you were saying. But she said there was something else going on. She said, I don't know that you're aware of. She said, what I saw surrounding the stage were about 200 other spirits of this woman's yet to be born descendants. And
Wow.
they were there rejoicing that they weren't going to have to take on her crippling emotional baggage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of fun.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of us now are doing that work because we have the tools to do it. Like our ancestors didn't really have the ability that, like, they were in survival. So now a lot of us in our generation and here on the planet now have the tools, and that's why
Yeah.
that we inherit it, but it's difficult. Um, wait, that's a great story. This is a question that's randomly coming up for me. In all your years of work, is there any kind of pain that you've seen that maybe isn't transmutable? Like I was thinking like dental pain or something, because I know like pain is in the mind and you use a drug and then it takes away the pain because it's all in the mind. But then I'm wondering like, what about pain for like something that's kind of severe or chronic? Like I know you're just sharing the story with something chronic, but what about like dental pain or if someone's healing from an injury or something like that?
Well, what's interesting is that in my practice, I I gave up all my assumptions, right? I didn't assume anything anymore after a while. And so I would just ask the subconscious mind what it needed. And the number one, and the reason the reason why I wrote the Emotion Code book first was because that was the first thing that would always show up. It was more common than anything else, emotional baggage. I used to work a lot with dancers and with athletes, and they would, come in after some kind of an injury, and there would be trapped emotions. And oftentimes, even if it was an injury that was kind of acute, and you'd think, oh, well, the pain is perfectly justified to be there because they just got slammed.
Mm-hmm.
Even in those cases, releasing emotional energy, uh, would often result in a reduction of pain, sometimes a disappearance of the pain.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've seen toothaches completely disappear instantly.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of an astonishing thing to me. And there were lots of times where people would get well that weren't supposed to get well. I remember once, or that couldn't seem to get well in any other way. I remember a lady that came to me once. She was the office manager for a chiropractic office group. And I think they had like, I don't know, 5 different doctors. She had had carpal tunnel syndrome for a whole year. And they had all tried working on her. And finally, they couldn't fix her. So they sent her over to my office. And I was able to fix her in one visit. And the reason why she was having this problem was because her problem was really her gallbladder. She had emotional energy. She had like 3 or 4 trapped emotions that had lodged in the gallbladder. Now, in the body code, what we do is we explain to people how the organs and glands connect with the muscles and how then that can cause trouble. In her case, her gallbladder was totally shorted out, right? Well, anytime you have a short circuit in an organ or a gland, it's always going to take some muscle with it, sometimes more than one muscle. In this case, it's the anterior deltoid right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
That muscle was just totally almost like it wasn't even there anymore. And as soon as I released those trapped emotions from her gallbladder, and her gallbladder became happy again and content, this muscle immediately turned on, and suddenly that was causing such an imbalance that the result was carpal tunnel. But once I released that, all of a sudden that symptom just disappeared. I mean, it was one of my most fun days, really, to get this, to be able to send her back, say, yeah, she's fixed now, no
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that because you're really talking about that root healing as opposed to like in Western medicine where it's very anatomically like, okay, we're working on the wrist, so let's fix the wrist. We're working on the
Right.
ear, let's look at the ear. And there's, specialties in each of these
Yeah.
things. So can you talk a little bit more about the body code? I didn't
Mhm.
get a chance to read that book, but I saw that there's like 6 different categories that you talk about of imbalances.
Yeah. Well, this is what the body code book looks like. And then on this page in the body code book, we have these different imbalances, 6 different kinds of imbalances that are listed. What I found when I was in practice, now remember, I was a computer programmer
Mm-hmm.
before, right? And so I've always got a computer there with me in my office so I can keep notes and things. And I'm gradually breaking the code on the subconscious mind, this internal computer that we all have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was building this map really. And it
Mm-hmm.
turned out, when I would find something new, I would try to figure out where it would go in this map that I was building, a map of imbalances essentially. And it turned out that there were 6 different kinds of imbalances. And so, for example, one kind of imbalance is energies.
Mm-hmm.
And energies are things like trapped emotions, they're like traumas that happen to the body, things like that. Um, and then another area, of course, is pathogens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we all develop pathogens at some point or another. We've all got them. A lot of us are living with them. Another category is what we call circuits and systems. It's how the body's organized. And this has to do with the organs and glands, the chakras, meridians, connections between the physical body and the spirit, things like that. Crazy things. Let's see. And then, of course, as a chiropractor, I found misalignments cause all kinds of trouble, and any tissue
Mm-hmm.
can misalign, right? And and then, of course, toxins.
Mm-hmm.
Almost last but not least, we all have toxins. We live in a very toxic world now. And then the last one is nutrition and lifestyle that covers pretty much everything else,
Mm-hmm.
nutritional
Mm-hmm.
deficiencies and on and on and on. So what I found was, as I put this map together, what I could do is I could ask subconscious mind, um, and I could ask the subconscious mind where we needed to go on this chart if a person had some kind of a problem, and it would take me there. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, okay, I had a patient that came to me once that had this chronic cough, had been going on for an entire year. And she's coughing all day long. She's coughing all night long. She's been to several different doctors, hospitals, CAT scans, MRIs. Everything looks completely normal. They can't find anything wrong with her at all, right? And so she told me, in fact, Kat, that her husband months before had moved into the other end of the house, and
Mm.
there were signs that her marriage was starting to fray. He needed to be able to sleep at night, and she's coughing all night long, and she was afraid she was going to end up in a divorce. And so I tested her using the body code, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the subconscious mind knows everything, just like you were saying earlier, right? It remembers everything, knows everything. And so I was taken to the area of toxins, and it was some kind of a chemical toxin that was the very first thing that showed up, right? And so we don't list all the toxins possible in the book because there's too many. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just went to Google, and I just listed, common household chemicals and things that you might find in a home. And looking at these different pages, and it's many, many pages. And I got to this page and I got an answer. I'm looking at the page and I said, okay, is this whatever this is it on this page? I got a yes. So I went a few down the list. No, no, no. And then it went to camphofenique. Have you heard of that before?
No. Mm-mm.
Camphofenique is, I think it's actually still available. It should be banned probably, but it's a really toxic kind of a liniment, that
Mm-hmm.
people would put on their muscles. And it contains camphor and phenol, and it's just not
Mm-hmm.
very healthy. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so I said to her, "Do you use camphofenique?" And she said, "Camphofenique." And I mean, her face went pale and her eyes got really big. And I said, "Yeah, camphofenique. Do you use it?" And she said, "Well, yeah." She said, "We have this elderly friend, this woman that we've known forever." And she said, every night, the last thing I do is I go over to her house and I rub her feet with camphofenique.
Wow.
And I said, "Oh, well, I think you need to stop doing that because your subconscious mind is telling me that's a toxin that's a reason why you have the cough."
Mm.
So I released the energy of the camphofenique from her. She stopped using it and never coughed again. You know what I mean? And so without the body code, it would have been really hard to find that.
Yeah. So you do muscle testing. Do you also do dowsing? Because like I'll use
Yeah,
dowsing. Okay, and you can get the same
absolutely.
results from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I travel, I always have a pendulum with me,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bobber. I got L rods.
Okay.
Yeah. I got the
Same.
whole deal.
Same, same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Dowsing is just another form of muscle testing is a form of dowsing. It's all the same. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right. And so when you were saying with that story, you release the energy of that chemical. So
Mm.
just from that session, you're saying like the energetic imprint that was causing the cough was released. And so
Yeah.
do people go through a detox process when that's happening? Because like if they release the energy, but then the physical body still has some of the remnants of that. Do you ever see that?
Well, sometimes, yes. I mean, sometimes you can release sometimes you can release all of it, just energetically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll tell you, it has a lot to do with your own belief system, your own level of belief, and also the person you're working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because really, I think what God's trying to teach us is that everything is energy, and we can control energy to a huge degree, but it's all dependent on our belief, right? We know that subatomic particles will completely change their behavior, totally depending on what the observer is expecting to
Mm-hmm.
see, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell us? So that's really a fundamental underpinning of how this stuff works. I mean, when you're working on somebody, uh, and you're trying to release something like some kind of a toxin, yeah, it's all about your own intention because really that toxin, yeah, you can think of it as some kind of a chemical, whatever. But really, what is it? Really, it's frequency and energy and vibration. It's just part of the quantum field, and that can change instantly. So, yeah, people's DNA can change instantly. Oftentimes DNA and genetic problems seem to be from inherited traumas that pass down.
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, it's really interesting stuff. And the body code is what's exciting about it is that of course it's an app. There's an app for that. There's an app for everything. But right. But yeah, anybody can do this.
Right.
And that's what the book is really for, is to teach people how to do this, how to get the information out of their own subconscious minds, or they can work on their friends and family and loved ones. And, there's so much that we can do. I believe that we all have this innate birthright to be
Mm-hmm.
able to heal, right? But we somewhere along the line lost that. And so the emotion code, body code, belief code, heart code are just their ways to give that back to people. And that's the most exciting thing for me, is seeing people that, you know, 5 or 10 years ago didn't know anything about healing, or maybe a year or maybe even 6 months ago, and now they're healing people. And that's what the world needs. The world has to heal, and it's not going to come through organized Western medicine. I'm sorry, it's just not, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's through the kind
Mm-hmm.
of work that you're doing and the kind of work that I'm doing, and people learning how to do this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
A lot of times with figures in our past that have done miraculous healing on people, it's because like angels were present, or, like there's some other force that's coming in and kind of doing the healing when it's miraculous, or they use like a light table, or they do, all sorts of things. And what I find interesting is that it's really just you working with your subconscious mind and a magnet or your hand, I guess.
Well, it is and it isn't. And
Okay.
let me just explain, because what we do in our certification programs, for example,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what we try to explain to people is that, I really believe that this work has all come from up above.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever people believe, and everybody's got different belief systems, and that's fine. But if you happen to believe that there's a higher power than you, what we recommend for people to do is to ask for help from that higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find is that it's been observed that when we do that, when we take that moment of silence and we ask for help, well, there are a couple things going on. One thing is that we're admitting that we need help, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that opens a conduit really to the higher power, the power that's keeping all the planets in orbit and that created us.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get that help if we can get it, right? But it's been observed by people who have the ability to see spirits that when we ask for that help, that's when the spirits come in. And
Mm-hmm.
they'll usually stand behind a person and be very
Mm-hmm.
intently focused on helping them to help that person. So the questions that pop into their head to ask, right? Directions to go, things to look for, oftentimes are communicated through those angels. So yeah, we don't want to discount that part
Mm-hmm.
of it
Mm-hmm.
really at all. Um, so so yeah, I mean, healing happens, I think, through your own intention, um, maybe through the intention of those angels that are around you, through the intention of the person that you're working on, the intention of the higher power. I mean, who knows? What I have always said is that the highest duty of the healer really is to act as a go-between for the higher power, right? And I think that helps us to not be in our ego state, because as it's like we tell people, look, when you do this, if, before long, somebody's going to come back to you with tears in their eyes. They're going to thank you for changing their life, or saving their life, etc. And I always tell them, look, when that happens, you need to accept that graciously, but then you need to pass it right on up to the higher power, God, source energy, creator, whatever you want to call it, right? Because that's really where the healing power comes from. Because the moment that you take that to yourself and you start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm all that, boom, in that moment, you cut yourself off from the very source of your power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that is actually how
Mm-hmm.
we look at it. So it might, yeah, at first glance, it might seem it's just us and the subconscious mind of the patient or the client, but yeah, there's actually more going on.
Like divine intervention. Yeah.
Exactly. We're trying to, yeah, connect into that if we can.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm still not able to wrap my head fully around the speed of how things clear out, because like just in my work and in things that I've seen, sometimes it could be like 20 minutes focusing on something, trying to like release it. And so I'm just like, wow, how is that possible? But I mean, I've done sessions with practitioners of yours, so I've understood that
Yeah.
a little bit. Um, But for the sake of time, I did want to talk about the heart code and
Yeah.
heart wall, because we didn't mention that the whole interview yet, but that's a big component of your work. And I know it's coming out, I think, in a few days, your book and documentary on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
So,
it is. Well, so the Heart Code book looks like this, right?
hmm
And so what this is really about, this is a phenomenon that's talked about in the Emotion Code, the
hmm
hardcover version. You've got the old one, the soft cover,
hmm
and also in the Body Code. When when my wife and I published the Emotion Code back in June of 2007, which is when the iPhone first shipped, I
Wow.
think it's kind of interesting.
Wow.
Just to put a time frame on it, it's amazing how fast
hmm
time goes. We knew eventually we were going to have to write another book just about this phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
about the heart. Well, so here's the thing. Oh gosh, over 100 years ago, a long time ago, they discovered doing anatomy that there was an area in the heart of every single person that was really similar to brain tissue. Right? Eventually, they counted them. This is like typically 40,000 neurites in the brain, gray matter and white matter, just like the brain in our heads. And they knew that for a long time, but it wasn't until about 1991 that a study was actually published that explained how this is actually a completely separate brain in the
hmm
heart, totally separate from the brain in our heads. And when scientists looked at the communications between the brain in the heart and the brain in the head, they found the vast majority of communications were traveling from the heart to the brain, just the opposite of what they expected to see,
hmm
indicating that maybe the brain that is in our heads is obeying messages that are being sent by the brain in our hearts, right?
hmm
Interesting. Well, I remember when I was a kid in the 1960s when Dr. Richard DeBakey was his name. He did the first heart transplant surgery. Huge deal. I mean, worldwide news. I remember reading about it in Life magazine. I was always into, this kind of thing. And and anyway, the interesting thing is when heart transplants became routine, doctors began to notice something kind of weird, that sometimes people would come back to them and they would report strange things,
hmm
like their taste in food or music or sports had totally changed, or they'd have memories sometimes of being in places they never in their life had ever visited, right?
hmm
And there are stories about this. It's called cellular memory, that the heart somehow contains these memories of the things that we really love and the places that we really love, the kinds of food and sports and things, the things that are really the dearest to our heart.
hmm
Well, the ancients understood, I think, all of this on kind of a different level, that they believed, I mean, thousands of years ago, that the heart was the seat of the soul, the source of love and creativity and romance and the core of our being. And I mean, some of these stories are so cool. And so in the Heart Code book, we talk about some of these stories. And one of them that actually I've used for many years, this didn't even make it into the book. I think it's in one of the other books. Is a story about this young girl. She was 9 years old. She got a heart transplant from another young girl who had actually been murdered. And when she recovered from the surgery, she starts having these consistent nightmares that she is being killed.
hmm
And eventually her parents take her to the police and they do a composite drawing. And her descriptions of the murderer and the murder weapon in her nightmares led to the arrest and conviction of the killer of the donor, because she was literally seeing the murder of this other child
Wow.
in her nightmares. Yeah. So isn't that interesting? And there's so many stories like that. Friend of ours got a heart transplant, big, tall, very masculine guy, got a heart transplant from a woman. And now to this day, he has a hard time passing Starbucks. And he never used to go there. Now he goes in, he finds himself at the counter ordering a hazelnut latte, her favorite drink. He found out later. He also just has this thing for ice cream. He can't pass an ice cream shop. It's like, oh, honey, ice cream. Let's, you know. So really funny stories like this. Well, anyway, what happens to us is we often experience intense emotion where we feel like our heart might be breaking, right? And it's a physical sensation, right?
hmm
Like you might feel like there's an elephant sitting on your chest or like you can't breathe. Have you
hmm
ever felt that kind of thing?
Of course. Oh my gosh. When I was going through a very hard time just 3 years ago, I was seeing an acupuncturist because I felt like I couldn't take a full breath in. And she would do all of this acupuncture work on me for my lungs and my heart. And at some point, I was like, Have you heard of broken heart syndrome? Like it's a medical term for when the left
Absolutely. Yeah,
side of
we
the
talk a
heart.
lot about it in the Heart Code book.
Yeah, I was like, do I have that? Because I was just really struggling after that ending of that relationship. And so I know all about that. Yeah.
Well,
Unfortunately.
yeah, that's where you literally can die of a broken
Yes.
heart, right?
Yes.
Well, so what happens is what we have found is that when you feel those feelings like your heart's going to break,
Hmm.
heart really is everything the ancients, I think, believed it to be. It is the seat of the soul, the source of love and creativity. I think it is the core of the subconscious mind is in the heart.
Hmm.
And so when you feel like your heart's breaking, your heart is really under assault. So the subconscious mind will build a wall to protect the heart, right?
Hmm.
That's what you do. You build a fort, kind of, to protect it. And it's a subconscious thing, and that wall is made of layers of emotional baggage. And so we call it a heart wall. And what's amazing is that when that wall is taken down, people often fall in love who never thought they would. And people have creative ideas that just begin to flow spontaneously because the best ideas you'll ever have will not come from this brain, this analog computer. They'll come from this brain where you feel, because this
Hmm.
is where we feel. We don't feel anything here. Now, listen, Kat, part of the reason why the world is so screwed up right now is because about 93% of people on the planet, it seems, have this wall. So they don't really feel. So if you're a politician and you got a big heart wall, it makes perfect sense, to use war as an extension of,
Hmm.
politics and drop bombs. And yeah, sure, why not?
Hmm.
Um, and here we are in 2025 and we're still using war. There's so much crazy stuff that goes on. Well, anyway, that's a big reason why. And so this book is part of a movement, really. Our
Hmm.
goal is to open 1 million hearts. And we think that that'll be enough to hit the tipping point
Oh, for
where
sure.
this world will transform.
Hmm.
My wife and I have been all over the world teaching seminars and in different places in different countries and so on. We've had people come up to us who have said, I had a near-death experience where I saw this heart wall work change the world. Or people have had dreams or they've had visions and so on, seeing the future where if we get rid of enough heart walls, the whole world transforms in an instant. And
Hmm.
so, and it's also one of the most powerful, I think it actually is the single most powerful thing you can do for yourself. Um, Not only to create more love in your life. For example, I mean, it's so amazing how it all works. But when you fall in love, it's not from this brain, it's from this brain, right?
Hmm.
And I have to tell you the story. One of our practitioners told us that her sister called her one day. Now, her sister had been divorced for 9 years, and she'd never really gotten any work done, any emotion code work, no heart wall work. And her sister's a practitioner. And so one day she calls her up. She says, "Listen, sis, it's been 9 years now. I've been divorced." She said, "I'm not getting any younger. I'm tired of being alone. I need to find somebody. Can you come work on me? Maybe I've got some emotional baggage."
Hmm.
So the two of them got together for the weekend. And sure enough, she had a heart wall. And so her sister was able to clear this heart wall from her. Guess what? And neither one of them told anybody what they were doing. They just spent the weekend together. It was just the two of them. Guess what started happening on Monday? The phone started to ring. Who was calling? Well,
Yeah.
guys that had known her years before. Because all of a sudden now that wall's taken down,
Hmm.
that pure essence of her heart is now going out into the field, right? The morphic field, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden, boop, she pops into the heads of these guys. And
Right, right, right.
yeah. So I think there was like 3 guys that called her that week. So she's probably married by now, because that was probably a year ago. But this is how things work. I mean, this
Yeah.
is reality. Also, I have to tell you this.
Yeah.
Back in the years when I had my practice, during the last 10 years of my practice, most of the people that I saw, I've been told there was really no hope for them at all in Western medicine. They were coming to me as a last resort.
Hmm.
Now, with all of these patients, I would do an examination where it was a unique exam. I did all the normal exam stuff that doctors do, but I also would add things like I would test the balance of all the organs and all the glands and all the meridians and the chakras. And it was not unusual for these people who were so sick to find every organ and gland out of balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
most of their chakras and meridians also, I mean, they were just a mess. And sometimes with these patients, Kat, I would just do one thing. I would just clear their heart wall. And then I would redo that exam. And you know what? Inevitably, 80% of all those organs and glands would be turned back on and happy. And the chakras and meridians too. It was the single most powerful thing that I could do for a patient was to clear their heart wall, because you see the heart with every beat is communicating with all the cells in the body, right? And so it's just amazing. I think we're living in the age of the heart now, and you know, it's just such a cool time to be living.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, people can pre-order this book and they can do their Christmas shopping. I think this is the best thing you can give as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a gift that's going to keep on giving, for sure. Best kind of gift to give. So if you want to, what you can do is you can go to my website, okay, at drbradleynelson.com. That's drbradleynelson.com. And you can actually just you can order books there. And I mean, you can also go on Amazon and order them, or Barnes and Noble. But if you go to drbradleynelson.com and order them, then you get a free bonus. I think if you order 5 books, you get a free heart code session. Um, and the more books you order, the more amazing the prizes get, etc. I don't know what they all are, but my staff puts that together. But if you go there and you buy a book, use the code Soul Awakening. Soul Awakening.
Oh, great. Okay, great. So this brings up just some quick questions about the heart. Do you find that abundance, like money coming in, is related to the heart when you heal heart walls? Have you seen any link with that with
Oh my
people?
gosh. Yes, absolutely. There's a whole chapter in the book about
Okay.
abundance.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because see, what happens to us is the heart holds, I think, the perfect blueprint
Mm-hmm.
for the best life we can have. I think it's locked away in there when you have a heart wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, think about it. Probably when you graduated high school or college, whatever, somebody probably said, Kat, you should follow your heart. And that's great advice, right? But what if you have a heart wall? Well, it becomes much more difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, oh yeah, there's so many stories in here of people who, like there's one story of a lady that couldn't sell her house. She's trying to sell her house for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
No interest, couldn't get it sold, cleared her heart wall, sold it the next day. I mean, crazy things happen. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you something. When I was in practice, uh, this is just a phenomenal thing. But my office manager and I once a year would we'd sit on the floor, we'd pull all the files of everybody that hadn't been in for a year. We'd pull all those files out, put them on the floor, and we'd look at each one at a time and look at the person's photo and just, oh yeah, I wonder how she's doing. 80% of those people would call and make an appointment within the following week. Now think
Mm-hmm.
about that. How does that work? You know, um, there's a doctor that wrote an amazing book called Rupert Sheldrake from Oxford. He wrote this book called Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
About the morphic field. And
Mm-hmm.
what they found was that the moment the owner began thinking of going home, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what time of the day it was, that's when the dog would go to the window at their
Mm-hmm.
house or the door, because of this field that connects us all. And so it's just such an amazing thing. Life is so amazing. And I think we're waking up to the fact we are really divine beings, and we're finally learning what we're capable of. And it's so much more than we ever even imagined. And we're just scratching the surface, really.
Yeah. I was just thinking, in the case of a heart wall, when it forms due to trauma, heartbreak, whatever may happen, isn't that kind of just like a protective mechanism? So let's just say someone just got their heart crushed, like
Yeah.
broken, and then
Yep.
they form this heart wall really quickly, whether it's with like a parent or with an ex-boyfriend, husband, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, wouldn't that kind of be like kind of necessary for a little bit as the heart's in that very fragile state? Like, is there any benefit to having one if so many people have them um, due to
Yeah.
that traumatic event happening?
Well, it's a protective mechanism, sure. It's put
Mm-hmm.
up, when the bombs are falling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like moving your heart into a bunker kind of to keep it safe.
Right, 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 right.
Makes total sense. You're
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of a divorce, you're being bullied, you're in a terrible job, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. The problem, though, is that it remains
Right.
once that situation is over. The bully moves away, divorce is
Mm-hmm.
finalized, you've moved on. Now you're trying to fall in love again, and now your heart's in a bunker still. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, the heart wall doesn't go away automatically. I mean, I think that there's more than one way to get rid of a heart wall.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the easiest, fastest way, right? Um, you know, there are there's lots of different things that you can probably do, and I think um, I think the emotion code, the heart code, is really just the easiest, fastest way, the most efficient way, really, to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that the heart wall is put up for a reason. It's a protective mechanism. I will tell you this, okay? Um, if if I'm working on somebody and they're in a bad, abusive situation or whatever,
Right,
their
right.
subconscious mind, we always ask the subconscious mind, is it, can we release, can we, start releasing emotions from the heart wall now? Sometimes the subconscious mind will say no. And so we just respect that, right? We allow the subconscious to choose. In every situation that I have personally experienced, though, when a person's subconscious mind says, no, I don't want to get rid of my heart wall, if you give that person a week
Mm-hmm.
and you come back and ask them again, every time, for me, the answer has always been, yeah, okay, I'm ready
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of it. Sometimes what happens is, I mean, usually relationships just improve and so on. However, sometimes someone's in a relationship that's not healthy or it's toxic,
Right.
and they're still in the relationship because they can't really feel how bad it is. They can't really feel the venom. You know what I mean?
Right, right,
And
right.
so their subconscious mind, after a bit, will come back and say, yeah, go ahead, get rid of it. And then when we get rid of that heart wall and they go back into that relationship, now they can really feel how bad this is. And that'll end up in separation, divorce typically.
So this is the last question on the heart. In the case of palpitations or arrhythmias or like atrial fibrillation or things where the rhythm is really off or really elevated,
Yeah.
can this work help that? Or is that more of like something happening internally in the heart versus the wall outside of it?
Well, I'll tell you what, in my experience, having seen a lot of this over the years,
Mm-hmm.
um, yes, emotional baggage can definitely contribute. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a couple of other things that are often going on. Um, One of those things is something going on with the teeth. In the body code,
Wow.
yeah, in the body code, you'll be taken there often in the section on toxins. There's a whole section on teeth, and you can drill down to an individual tooth. What you'll often find is that that tooth has a root canal, or you might find that there's a cavitation there that which is maybe there was a tooth that was removed. 70 to 90% of the time when a tooth is taken out, it will result in what's called a cavitation, which is an area of infected, basically dead bone. And there's no
Mm.
circulation, but you get 20 to 30 different kinds of bacteria living in there. And then those toxins leach out by gravity.
Right,
And
right, right.
doctors who specialize in breast cancer, for example, will if they do a thermographic study on a woman with breast cancer, what they'll find is that breast will be hot, but then they'll find hot spots corresponding in the jaw. And when they go to a
Mm.
dentist, and there aren't very many, relatively not very many dentists who do this kind of work, but they'll find, oh yeah, root canals and so on, or maybe a cavitation, and so they have to clean those out. Yeah, that's another thing. And then the other thing, really, they're the three biggies. Dental stuff going on, cavitations, root canals, for any of these heartbeat issues. That's the number one thing. And then number two is misalignment.
Mm.
Typically, misalignment of the the second thoracic vertebrae right here. Now, um, you can actually fix misalignments. I mean, we don't teach people to be chiropractors, but what I found in my practice was that most of the time when you've got a bone that's out of alignment, it's because of something else. And that something else is usually some emotional energy that's kind of distorting that area,
Mm,
right? You find the trapped emotion, release it, the bone can instantly go back into alignment. And
hmm.
then, the palpitations or whatever it might be going on often just goes away. And so then emotional energy too, if there are trapped emotions there, heart wall and so on. So yeah, so those are the things that I have seen over 37 years that are usually the big three for
You said
that.
two. You said the dental, the T2, and then
Yeah. Dental, emotional baggage, heart
okay,
wall, and also misalignment, especially of
right.
T2. Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. So literally, someone could heal a misalignment in their spine. Have you seen scoliosis healed from the emotion code?
Yeah. Yeah. Think about it. Scoliosis, there's always a reason, right? Why
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
scoliosis is there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it can get well if you can figure out the underlying reasons. Sometimes it's been there for so long, though,
Right.
that
Right. Right.
it's like, structurally things have changed a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can catch it early enough, yeah, it's totally fixable. Mhm.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, thank you so much. This was really, really, really interesting. And you have so many offerings available. You have your books, then you also teach courses to certified practitioners.
Yeah.
So, how can people find you if they wanted to do a session with one of your practitioners or a course from you to learn how to do this themselves, or anything that you're doing right now? You have a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the best place to do that is to go to discoverhealing.com. That's our main website. And yeah, all the information is there. We offer three levels of certification. We offer emotion code, that's level one, body code's level two, and then the something that we call the belief code is level three certification. And the belief code is where we use the subconscious mind to very, very rapidly, I mean, within typically 20 minutes, we can identify a whole belief system and then delete it.
Hmm.
Negative belief system.
Right, right, right. Well, thank you so much. This was incredible. Is there any last final words you'd like to offer to all the listeners?
Yeah, I would. The reality of it is, we look around and we see all this chaos and all this commotion right in the world, and it's just crazy. And it's probably going to get crazier because the earth, I believe, is in labor, struggling to bring forth this new world, this new existence that is going to be unlike any existence that any of us have ever known. Um, it's going to be a world that is going to be dominated by the heart and unconditional love. That's where we're going. And that's what the holy men and prophets have written about for thousands of years. They've foreseen this time that we're living in, and it's an amazing time. So, I would really strongly recommend for you to look into this work. If you're looking for Christmas shopping, I love getting all my Christmas shopping done in one shot, and you can do it with the hard code book. Just go to drbradleynussing.com and get a free session, get some bonuses, and uh, and I want to thank you, Kat, for having me on your show today. It's really fun.
Oh, thank you so much. It made me think with your last message how now AI is coming up so much and that has no emotions. It's heartless. So
Right.
it's like the equal and opposite because we live in duality has to occur. So your work and your desire to really push that forward makes me feel like it's coming up against what's also rising, which is like the opposite of that. So I love that. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Yeah, you're so welcome. One of the interesting things, if you become a practitioner, for example, of the emotion code,
Mhm.
AI will never take your job. AI does not receive
Right.
intuition from angels. Yeah, it just doesn't happen.
Even though some people think it does, but it does not.
Nah, it'll never be capable of that.
No, I agree. I agree. Well, thank you again. So, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope that you enjoyed this as much as I did. I'm always amazed at how much I'm learning with doing these interviews, even with all of the study and the courses and things that I've done in the past. So, hopefully, you're getting a lot out of them as well. So, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Soul Awakening podcast. When you subscribe, you'll be notified of our new interviews and episodes when they release. You can find all the episodes online at catfowler.com/soul awakening podcast, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube at cat_Fowler, and pretty much all places where podcasts are found. And please don't forget to leave a review or a comment while you're there. It really does help with the show. So if you love the information that you heard today and it sparks something in you, feel free to share this with your friends and family as well. I'm your host, Kat Fowler, and thank you again for listening. I'm wishing you lots of peace, lots of healing, and lots of joy for the rest of your week. And I will see you again on the next episode.